Hi, everyone from Facebook. This is Dr. Gail Clayton, and I have one of my favorite people in the world as a guest. And a real treat is Dr. Margaret Christensen from Dallas. And she is hosting the Toxic Mold Summit that's going to be airing August 17th through the 23rd. And today, the marketing just kind of like went wild. And I met Dr. Christensen about a year and a half ago. Actually, 2 years ago, I went to Dallas, and Real Times Labs was putting on a seminar for toxic mold, and I went there and I sat next to her and we started talking, and we just kind of formed some kind of bond. And then we decided, oh, we need to like make the mold detox diet course to and launch it with the summit. So I got busy doing all of that. And then at the end of the first summit, I took a short, like 3 week break. And then I said, oh, I'm going to make the advanced mold immune course for practitioners and for like really motivated lay people. And so I've been working on that really, really hard for the last year, along with Dr. Christensen. But, Dr. Christensen, tell me what made you decide to even like do all this, you know, it's an insane amount of work to put on one of these summits. So what's your underlying driver and what is your purpose?
Well, first of all, Gail, thanks for having me on your as a guest. And Gail and I have just we have been working our butts off putting together both the mold detox diet as well as this advanced immune course, which I was really the editor for it. Gail did all the work, but to answer your question about why to do the Toxic Mold Summit. I practice functional medicine. I've been doing this for 18 years, and the reason I got into it was because myself and my entire family got sick again, almost 20 years ago. It took 8 years to figure out what was going on. And, I had severe consequences, as you did, um, including for me, it was severe chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, a lot of insomnia. I could never sleep, along with some anxiety, depression issues. But my whole family was affected. And I still have two children of my four who have been majorly impacted because I didn't know what was going on there. So I have a son who's got severe mental illness. And when you look at the connection between toxic mold and air quality and mental illness and anxiety, depression, psychiatric illnesses, is huge. My former husband has Parkinson's, so neurodegenerative diseases in a whole nother area. And when I got into this, I started understanding all the autoimmune issues that could be caused, all the hormone disruptions, all the brain dysfunction, and then you've got two patients, both self and house. So I had to do it because really I did a lot because of my son, and trying to educate other parents and practitioners to know what they're looking at before it causes so much damage that it's hard to fix it.
Yeah, mold is a very expensive problem, and it's a very traumatic problem too. And I really enjoyed working with you on creating the course. You said that I did all the work and you just did the editing, but I had the best way for me to learn something is to teach it, and so
Mhm.
I had a lot of fun putting together these slides, and then I sent them to Dr. Christensen, and and she would always just go, wow, wow, wow. And then she's like, hold on, elaborate on this a little bit more. So Margaret, what do you think are the biggest things that you learned from me, as I was creating this course, that it was like it really like took you to a whole nother level?
Well, for me, I think it's, part of it has to do with using specific nutrients when to help impact the cycle of immune dysfunction. We know that, again, mold mycotoxins really impact us in a number of different ways. One is as an allergen. The second is as, a direct mitochondrial toxicant. So it actually impairs our energy. And then in general, just the toxicity that happens in the brain and breathing stuff in and then affecting our gut. So I think with the advanced mold immune course that you did all this research for and put together, what we're looking at is the basic steps of the imbalance. And what I really learned about was uh, the difference really between the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system, and how when we are dealing with toxic mold, we're suppressing our innate immune system that's going after our viruses and our bacteria and things like cancer cells. That's the surveilling part of the immune system, and it's overactivating the cytokines and the antibody production of the adaptive immune system. And certainly, this is the time that everybody's real interested in learning about this because of the whole COVID situation. And those people who have a suppressed innate immune system and overactivated adaptive immune system are the ones who are getting super sick and the ones who are dying. If you have a balanced immune system, and that's what, a lot of what you taught me was the details of that. I sort of knew how to do some things clinically already because I've been doing this for a long time, but to understand and know why are these things, uh, why are these things making us sick? And when you have this imbalance that's going on, and then how do you bring it into balance and how do you correct it? That and this is information that everybody needs to know. It's affecting our kids, our parents. I mean, looking at schools, at dorms, at nursing homes. This is why people are getting sick from COVID. They already have exposure to air pollutants and mycotoxins that are impacting their lungs and their sinuses and their immune systems and creating this, and then they're susceptible.
Right, right, right. And so, yeah, it was really a lot of fun putting together and learning. And one of the things that I think I got even a bit deeper understanding is when I put together the part about the histamine and the detailed pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And then it hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to put this on a form. Because I remember when I worked in a hospital as a pharmacist and a patient would come in, we had these forms, and so that we wouldn't forget, like checklist, check, 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 check. And I'm like, I need a checklist because there's so many little details. And I'm like, I know I'm going to put a histamine assessment form together that's going to ask all of these questions. And so then I put together this, I don't know, 11-page long histamine assessment form and started using it in my practice. And when you watch those videos and study those pathways and understand the meaning between of each one of those questions on the intake form, you'll begin to like formulate a little path in your brain. And so, Margaret, how is that, that real detailed information about the whole histamine, how is that impacting your patients now that come in with histamine intolerance and mast cell?
Well, again, it's really interesting because a lot of how mold makes people sick does involve the histamine pathways and overactivating them. And so you can get anything from, again, kind of recurrent allergy type of symptoms to hives, to eczema, to migraines is often a histamine release, and a lot of psychiatric symptoms, including psychoses, are due to histamine. Multiple chemical sensitivity, multiple food sensitivities, those are all histamine pathways. And so what I've learned from you is, again, some very specific interventions that we can do and how you can do it, and which nutrients that you can use to help cool down and calm down those histamine pathways. And that is a huge, huge benefit for, again, anybody out there, whether you're a practitioner or a layperson, to understanding how those pathways work. And with the Toxic Mold Summit, we have the first module of our advanced immune module available free for people to watch, and it's got the transcript from that, and that histamine questionnaire that you're talking about is also available to download for free. And then we really encourage folks to take a deeper dive into the immune system, because when we understand why something happens, then it's a lot easier to make the changes that we need to make, in whether in our diet, our nutrients, our lifestyle, moving, all of those kind of things. That makes it helpful.
Yeah. And today I just posted the link to the Toxic Mold Summit in our Facebook group. I really want you to encourage you all to sign up for that. So when you sign up for that, the Toxic Mold Summit, you get automatically free gifts from Dr. Christensen. And one of the free gifts is this really fantastic ebook on basically like, you got mold, now what? You know, and lots of resources and links to things. She did an incredible job with that. And then we decided that we wanted to give away the transcript for module 1 for free. We're working on an ebook for the whole course because, you know, we realize it's so action packed. Every slide, it's like tons and tons. And it's like you need to know everything on every single slide. And so, but we're giving away module 1 transcript for free. That's one of Dr. Christensen's free gifts. And then my free gift for the summit is that histamine assessment form. And it's really interesting because I'm mentoring some students that are going to take the CNS exam. And I gave them each the histamine assessment form to use in their practice. And I asked them, I said, are you using this form? They're like, not yet, because I don't know what it all means. Because that was like before we had launched the course. And I just got an email from one of them today. She says, oh my gosh, I just watched the first module. It is so fantastic. You know, I'm buying it today. So anyway, so we're so excited about it. But the thing is about this whole mold immune module, it's not just for mold. This works for everything. It works for Lyme. It works for autoimmune disease. If you can understand it, I think that you would save thousands and thousands of doctor money going into doctor visits because, you know, this is information that a lot of doctors don't even know. And doctors that specialize in autoimmune disease, a lot of this information that they don't know on that detail level. And y'all know that you know, I teach biochemistry. I'm very detail oriented. I want to know every cofactor, every mechanism, and I'm like following the pathway, because if I can understand the pathways, then I understand how everything is linked, and then how to get exactly where, like where, and then why. I tell my students all the time, I'll stop in the middle of the lecture. I'm like, but why? Why is this happening? Why? And even their research paper, I'm like, why did that disease develop? Give me an evolutionary benefit. And if they don't, 10 points off. I want to know, why these things happen.
So what's interesting with Gail and I, again, we have this sort of balance as we were doing this immune module together, because I'm like, okay, how do we implement that clinically? What's the clinical step and clinical action that you can take here? Whether or not you're a layperson or you know, a practitioner of some sort, is why is this important for us to know clinically? So both of us are educators. I've been teaching for the Institute for Functional Medicine, IFM, and educating other clinicians how to think in whole systems since 2007. So between the two of us, yeah, we've got some brains going here. And you know, I did again just kind of wanted to mention, because toxic mold is such an frequent and common and unrecognized trigger, it both suppresses parts of the immune system, as we talked about, and then overactivates other parts. So we can see things like cancer, again, irritable bowel, inflammatory bowel diseases, things like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, all kinds of autoimmune issues, rheumatoid arthritis, et cetera, being triggered by that. Then you have the whole psychiatric ball of wax, and psychiatric issues, from anxiety, depression, to some of the real severe psychiatric illnesses. And that's how one of my area of interest is, because of my own son. And then there's the neurodegenerative diseases, things like Parkinson's, ALS, MS, all that. Toxic mold is a very common underlying component of that. And then, you know, how does it manifest in children? Well, children is, you know, allergies, asthma, recurrent strep throats, recurrent ear infections. I always want to know, you know, what's going on environmentally that is contributing to those things. And God, you know, giving antibiotics, recurrent antibiotics, is just enough. That's destroying all of us. The same thing, or if you have chronic recurrent sinus infections, stop using antibiotics. We have to treat it as fungally, as they're using antifungals and identifying, are you in an environment where you're constantly breathing in these mycotoxins that are, suppressing and irritating your immune system. And yeah, so we offer, again, we got all kinds of lovely things for you. We have the Mold Summit that's coming up, and that's free. And there's all kinds of really, again, the whole spectrum of is what we covered on it. And then Gail and I created the Mold Detox Diet together. Again, that's a very simple, basic. What do you do from a diet and nutritional standpoint to get through? And then we have the advanced immune module that we both worked on. But I just have to, have to give Gail the credit for the deep dive into the research for that. And, you got two minds working together to really help and support you. And I would just say that it's probably, and again, I do environmental medicine and functional medicine now. I see all the people, they've already been to Mayo, they've already been to 10, 15 different specialists, they've been to the medical school, and they're not getting any better. And I tell you, it's environmental, and toxic mold is probably at the top of the environment there. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Margaret. And, Margaret and I are constantly learning. We just both got back from this fantastic neurolipid seminar over the weekend where we learned lots of fantastic stuff. That, one thing that was really huge that I learned is like the cell membranes. And I came back and I was even posting last night. I'm like, it's the cell membranes, it's vibrating 200 million times per second. And that, and then when we're breathing in toxic mold and eating bad food and everything, those membranes can't vibrate like that. So when you have a healthy cell membrane, viruses don't get in. So you're going to catch COVID. And it's vibrating 200 million times per second. And this brilliant PhD scientist was there, Dr. Ed Kane, and his new research is saying that what happens is the membranes of these healthy cells, they're vibrating 200 million times per second, that when the bacteria or a pathogen or the spike proteins on viruses try to get in, it just chops it off. It can't attach because of this like vibration. And what we want, and they had like, all of these fantastic tools, a lot of them that I was using already, but like just, fixing and focusing on the cell membrane. That's my first lecture in my course in biochemistry is let's talk about cell membrane, because that's the whole basis of everything and so many things. And when we're damaging our cell membranes when we're breathing in the mycotoxins, but that's what's happening to your lungs when you're breathing in COVID-19, because most of the viruses, like in your sinus and nasal cavity, you breathe it in and it's damaging the membranes on the lungs. And that's what's causing that cytokine storm. Same thing is happening with the mycotoxins.
Well, but Gail, again, to me, it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg. You are much more likely to get or have symptoms of COVID-19 if you are living in cities or buildings or, homes that have poor air quality. Because again, we talk about it in the advanced immune module, understanding that those hollow spaces are all lined with these immune cells. So if you have cells that are already primed, because you've been living in a moldy environment and you've turned on the adaptive cells and you've got the cytokines already going crazy and your innate immune system is suppressed and is not looking out for the viruses, and that virus comes along, it's much more likely to set up residence. If you've had chronic sinus infections, you've got all these boogies in your nose and you've got a sinus biofilm, those virus particles are going to stick. So hey, everybody's do it. What we recommended when we did our COVID immune support module together, that was rinse out your sinuses, take a shower inside your nose. That's the first thing I did when I came back from traveling, is I just rinsed my sinuses and made sure I wasn't carrying any boogies in there. So I think that's really super important to understand, that people who've got, like you said, intact immune systems and healthy cell membranes, and we do it with diet, we do it with nutrients, we replace, missing good fats. Those folks, if they get sick, it's transient, and they recover quickly. But it's the ones who are missing all the good nutrients and have damaged cell membranes for lots of different reasons, including the standard American diet. those are the ones who are getting sick.
Yeah. So Margaret, in Dallas, I know that you're like the top functional medicine doctor in the Dallas area. And you probably get a lot of people that come in with mystery illnesses. They're like, I've been to everybody else. Nobody, I've been to Mayo Clinic, I've been to Cleveland Clinic, nobody can figure me out. And how many of those would you say are mold?
Oh, 85%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, at least. And then,
Are they surprised when you say, "Oh, yeah, I think you're being toxic mold poison"? What do they? What? How? What?
well, again, for a lot of people that seems, it's overwhelming at first. And, the thing about it too is that people need to understand that it's cumulative over time. It's usually not just one exposure. Oftentimes we've been primed as children. Like, I lived in a moldy, we had basements where I grew up, and that was probably my first exposure. And then probably a number of different houses. I know the house that I grew up in here in Dallas had a number of water leaks over time. So I was being primed. And then I moved down to Houston, where I went to school at Rice, and, lived in a moldy dorm, and then moved into a really moldy apartment. So all of those things. And it wasn't until I was, in my late 30s, early 40s, I'd had 4 babies at that time. I hadn't slept for, 16 years doing OB. And lots of other chemical exposures. When that exposure hit with the black mold, and we were living in that house, and we were there for 4 years and didn't know why everybody in the house was sick, that's when things completely fell apart. And that's when I got the mystery illness, again, the chronic fatigue, the fibromyalgia, and I have, my youngest daughter has POTS syndrome, that's postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So again, and she's got a lot of chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. The challenge is I'm her mother, and our children sometimes don't want to listen to what we have to say. And not unusual in these in these situations. My former spouse also did not believe any of this. His symptoms were different. Men manifest differently. And we talked about this yesterday. I just talked to Dave Asprey today. He's the bulletproof guy. And we talked about, again, cardiovascular disease and erectile dysfunction and migraines and irritability. That's men. And women are much more likely to get the autoimmune components. And and then long-term exposures to, this is another thing that can cause cancers. And especially if you think blood cancers, things like lymphomas and leukemias. I'm always asking, hey, where was the mold? So, it's such a common exposure. Over 50% of houses have had some water damage, 60% of commercial buildings. And then you throw in EMFs on top of that. We live in a soup now of electromagnetic fields. We particularly have a new frequency that we all need to get educated about and learn how we can help stop further rollout of 5G. That would be, that again impacts cell membranes in our immune system. And then there's the standard American diet that you and I have talked about all the time, and genetically modified foods and, with pesticides and Roundup in it, is just decimating our gut immune system. And, throwing in antibiotics, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen, and alcohol and lots of sugar. And that's why everybody in this country is fat, sick, and depressed, and makes us makes us more susceptible to mold.
Right. Well, Margaret, it's interesting you talked about the 5G, and you had told me before that that mold is 20 times worse when the mold spores put out 20 times more mycotoxins on Wi-Fi. And I thought that was really interesting. But something you just told me the other day, because we need to protect ourselves against, the medical tyranny that's happening right now, and the 5G rollout and all of that. You told me about the super PAC, and you gave me the link, and I was quite impressed, and I signed up and I put the link in my Facebook group. Tell me about the super PAC and how we need to all collectively work together on our medical rights and stand up against medical tyranny.
Well, this is a real interesting area, because it doesn't matter which party it is. So it's really about supporting individual candidates and asking them about their knowledge of integrative medicine and environmental factors contributing to chronic disease, because we know that basically all of Congress, it doesn't matter which side you're on, is in the hands of the pharmaceutical industry, big chemical, big oil, big agribusiness. And, you can't say oil in Texas, that's like, ah, but, the reality is that we have to move away to that into sustainable, sustainable economies. And we have to do that with, electing officials now who aren't in the pockets of the pharmaceuticals, because we're not hearing about anything preventative. We're not hearing about air pollution. We're not hearing about water pollution. We're not hearing about our food supply, all impacting our immune systems and making us more susceptible. Instead, we've shut down the whole country and really the whole world. And there is so much that can be done. So I, invite people to do that. And there's also Public Citizen. I would highly recommend people check out Public Citizen, because there is an amendment to the Constitution to turn over. There was an amendment done previously that told us that corporations were people, and that's how corporations have gotten so much power. And there's an amendment to turn that over and stop that, because you have these multi-billion-dollar companies that are really in charge of our government and in charge of all the policies, and who are influencing medical schools and certainly all the Congress people. So we have to have a grassroots efforts from the grassroots up. And so I'm sure you'll probably put that link in
Yeah.
to
Well,
the pack,
yes.
and, yeah, for this.
Yes,
And
send
then
it to me.
we should also educate people. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of that particular amendment, but we have got to turn it over that people are not, corporations are not people. And they're pouring billions of dollars into our political system, again, on both sides. And that has to get stopped.
Well, thanks, Margaret. But anyway, I think we just want to kind of wind this up this evening, because we wanted to come on and really encourage everyone, because toxic mold is affecting either you or somebody you know. That's how common it is. And we want you to at least register for the Toxic Mold Summit and watch it. It's free during that week. I mean, if you want to buy the upgrades, of course, we encourage you to, but it's not mandatory. If you sign up if you sign up or just register, you get these free gifts from Margaret, and you get you get to watch the interview between me and Margaret that's posted in there. And also, isn't it Dr. Hyman and Trudy Scott are the free encore?
Yeah, Trudy Scott, she's one of the experts on anxiety, and we have her. And then we have an air quality specialist, whose name is Mike Trance, as one of the free interviews. But yeah, Mark Hyman almost died 4 years ago. You almost died, what is it, 8 or 10 years ago?
Yeah. And 12 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and most all of the interviewees that I have on the summit, are functional medicine luminaries and integrative medicine luminaries, most of whom themselves have been through the whole toxic mold experience, and that's actually what got them into integrative medicine. So come join us.
Okay, yeah. Well, so I'm going to have this available for everybody in the group, and thanks for watching.
Thanks, Gail.